Signs of a bull market are easy to come by, with the Dow back above 25,000, the Fed hiking rates, and the latest US jobs report steaming ahead of forecasts. However, my next guest warns that the next bear market will be the worst crash of our lifetime. Joining me now from Singapore via Skype is legendary investor and chairman of Roger Holdings, Jim Rogers. Jim, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Thank you for sparing us your time. I wanted to start off with the equity market and get your view in the short run.
Victoria, I'm the world's worst in the short term. You can ask anybody, you can ask your barber, and you'll get a better answer than me. I'm very bad at short-term trading.
But what about equities in the medium to long term? Are you still bullish on stocks?
Well, yeah, I'm still buying shares in China or Russia or Japan or some parts of the world if I find something good. The U.S. is at an all-time high. I don't particularly like buying things at all-time highs. Germany, some countries the markets are doing well. I prefer to buy low and sell high.
Yeah, it's a tricky one if you're looking for value or cheap stocks at this point. So in terms of the biggest downturn in our lifetime, I think that's something that you're expecting. Do you have any kind of sense of when that might be, the next recession?
Well, I do know we'll have one. We've always had them, although the former head of the central bank in America, Janet Yellen, her name is, says we're not going to have any more bear markets, we're not going to have any more recessions because she has solved the problem. I happen to know she's wrong, but Victoria, if you believe Janet Yellen, you should stop talking to me completely. I don't know when it will start. We've had them every 4 to 8 years, more or less, for the past few hundred years, a couple of hundred years in America. Doesn't mean we have to have them every 4 to 8 years. It's already been over 9 since the last bear market, so who knows? Usually these things start when we're not looking. You know, in 2007, Iceland went bankrupt. Most people didn't know Iceland could go bankrupt, that there was an Iceland, and nobody paid attention. Then the next thing you know, Ireland went bankrupt, and Bear Stearns, and Lehman Brothers, and by then everybody knew, oh my gosh, there's a problem out there. So it may have already started. There are enough people going, Latvia's gone bankrupt, some Indian banks have collapsed, Argentina's just collapsed. So it may have already started for all I know. I would expect it to start within the next year or so, but my market time is the worst in the world.
And what makes you think this is going to be the biggest downturn in our lifetime? Is it all because of debt?
Well, Victoria, in 2008, we had a big problem because of too much debt. Since 2008, Victoria, the debt everywhere has skyrocketed. Many people have talked about austerity, but nobody's done any austerity. Debt everywhere is much, much higher than it was then. The central bank in America's balance sheet alone has gone up 500% in those 8 or 10 years. So even China, you know, in 2008 and 2009, China had a lot of money saved for a rainy day. It started raining and they started spending their savings. Well, since then, even China has added a lot of debt. So the next time it's going to be horrendous.
So in terms of your worldview, how does that translate into your investments? Where are you putting your money and what's working?
Well, the main places at the moment, I said I would buy China, I would buy Japan, Russia. These are markets that are still depressed. So if I find or when I find things there, I try to invest. Agriculture is very depressed right now. It's not working at the moment, but agriculture is certainly a good place for me to put money. There are places to put money.
So I know that you've been buying into the Russian bond market. Is that presumably because you think the sanction story is going to blow over?
They always have. And sanctions have never really been very effective anyway, except for short periods, maybe against a few individuals or a few sectors. But I cannot think of any sector in world history that has really been affected in the long term by sanctions. Maybe this time is different. Maybe it's all going to work this time. I doubt it. Russia is hated. The markets are down. The Russians have very little debt, huge natural resources. They're opening up more and more. So I would suspect that a few years we'll look back and say, oh, remember when Russia was so cheap? Why didn't we buy it?
So another big concern for the markets is, of course, the trade war rhetoric. How do you think that's going to play out? Is that a concern for you?
Of course it is. Whenever we've had trade wars, we've had economic problems. No one has ever won a trade war. They've always ended badly. And Mr. Trump and the people around him seem to be very keen on trade wars. Mr. Trump has talked about them for years. He doesn't know history, which is possible, or he thinks he's smarter than history, which is probable. He thinks that he can win a trade war no matter what, and therefore he's willing to try, and it's getting worse and worse. And even if it slows down now, Victoria, when things get bad, this year, next year, whatever it is, Mr. Trump is going to resort more and more to trade wars, because that's in his soul, that's in his DNA.
Now, we've also got this upcoming summit between the US and North Korea coming up. Will you be watching that closely? And also, I heard that you would be interested in investing in North Korea if it were to open up.
I'd be very, very keen to invest in North Korea. North Korea today is where China was in 1981. By the way, I cannot invest in North Korea because I'm a citizen of the land of the free, and in the land of the free, we're not very free anymore. So I cannot invest there, but I would love to. They have anything you're good at, whether it's tablecloths or electricity or soap. I mean, they need it. So there are going to be great fortunes made in North Korea once this opens up.
Now, you, of course, are the commodities guy. What areas in the commodities market are getting you excited right now?
Well, agriculture because it's so cheap. You know, agriculture has been a disaster for over 30 years. You know, things are so bad that the average age of farmers in America is 58. In Japan, it's 66. The highest rate of suicide in the UK is in agriculture. I mean, I can go on more and more. More people in America study public relations than study agriculture. It's a disaster. Usually disasters turn around and people make a lot of money. They always have, certainly in agriculture, for hundreds of years.
And are there any specific commodities that you're looking at within agriculture?
Well, what one should do, and if I were on the phone with you right now, I'd probably go do it. I'd look to see which products are down the most, and that's where I would start looking.
And then what about gold as well?
Well, I own gold, but I haven't bought any serious gold in, I don't know, maybe 8-9 years. Gold is, before this is over, gold is going to skyrocket. You know, when people throughout history have lost confidence in governments or money, or paper money especially, they've always put their money in gold and silver. It doesn't matter whether they should or not. That's what they have always done, and that's what they will do. I'm not buying now, but if it goes down a lot, I hope I'm smart enough to buy more, a lot more.
And do you think cryptocurrencies could be a serious challenger to gold in terms of finding value in those uncertain times?
Maybe for some people for a while, but no. You know, the crypto people say that they're smarter than the government, and they are. They're certainly smarter than the government. But Victoria, the government has the guns, and when the government decides they're going to do something, they make it against the law, and then people have to do what the government says. You know, in the 1930s, people used everything for gold. They used seashells, they used gold, they used anything they wanted. But then when the British government, this is in the 30s, said, well, wait a minute, we don't want you using anything else, including gold, they made it an act of treason. In other words, they would execute you. They made it an act of treason to use anything except Bank of England notes for currency.
And I understand as well that you've just invested in an AI startup. Is that an area that you're getting excited about?
Excited is if one gets excited about investments, one should be calm down, careful. I know that you know, it's going to change the world. That the internet is it already is changing everything we know. My children will probably never go to a bank, never go to a post office, rarely go to a doctor, if ever. No, all of this is changing the world, and it is certainly going to change finance. Whether I've got the right investments or not, who knows?
Jim, thank you so much for your time today. That was legendary investor Jim Rogers talking us through his views on the markets. I'm Victoria Scholar. Thanks for watching IGTV, and we'll see you very soon.
Subscribe to IG for educational content, company insight, financial analysis, and expert commentary.